Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to today's BCS Authors webinar. I'm Heather Wood, I'm the Commissioning Editor for BCS Publishing and I'll be your host today for today's webinar with Bindu Channaveerappa, and she's here to talk about her book, Cybersecurity and Business Analysis, which was published a few months ago. This is being recorded and will be made available later on YouTube. The full YouTube playlist is actually available online now, and I'll add a link to this webinar series and to the playlist on the chat, so do take a look. The webinar series is ongoing and we've got a number of these coming up, so do take a look and keep an eye on our LinkedIn page for those that are upcoming the next few weeks. As I said, there are more to come. If you want to ask questions, there's a Q&A tab that will be open. So do add your questions and we'll cover these at the end. I will also be adding a discount code for the book, which will be 20% off. So do take a look, and that's on our bookshop, and I'll be posting that in the chat as well. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to pass you over to Bindu, who will be taking us through her webinar today.
Thank you, Heather. I hope you still can see the screen that I'm sharing.
I can.
Yeah, okay, yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for joining and welcome for this afternoon. If you're from the UK or wherever you are joining us from, it is great to have you all here, and hopefully we're going to have a good conversation in the next 45 to 50 minutes. And as Heather said, my name is Bindu Channaveerappa, and I've been a business analysis consultant for over 2 decades now. And in the last 6 to 7 years, I've been very actively working on advocating cybersecurity holistically within business analysis. So I was part of the team who put together the IIBA cybersecurity certification. And since then, I've been majorly advocating at every conferences around the world, both business analysis and information security, and on many online platforms, highlighting why cybersecurity is important from a business analysis perspective, and why it is necessary for us as BAs. When I say BA, it could be anyone who is actually using these sort of BA skills. Because when we talk about business analysis, it's our responsibility, and it's we operate on a gray area, as I always say. So we have different titles, but we will still be using those skills. So this is particularly for those who use BA skills and do the analysis and provide the analysis reports to the organizations for decision-making purposes. So, and last year, yes, it's been since I wrote this book. It's been kind of because what was happening was before the book, every time when I had these workshops or webinars, people would really get it and they say, yes, I see it's so important, but how do I really go about it? And it so happened we would just share a few tips and few techniques during those conferences or sessions, but everything had to come together in one place. And thanks to Heather, she approached me, and then later on the book happened, basically, which literally takes every BA, when I say BA again, whoever is using the BA skill, from understanding why it is important and incorporating the cybersecurity holistically within their analysis across the project. And that's exactly what the book really goes into very much in detail. So that is the kind of the context to why I'm here and why this book. So let's get into the details. And as a typical BA, again, yes, here is the details of the book. And this is the chapter list, some of which, as I just mentioned, it begins with understanding why business analysis, why is it is required for us, and going through the details of what is cybersecurity, understanding, and then it starts building. The knowledge build up happens using a framework, which we will be looking at it in a minute as well. So as I was saying, a typical BA would start asking those 5 W's. why is it the moment we start a project, oh, why is this? What's the problem we're addressing? Where, when, who, and all of those. So we will take a similar approach here and first of all, understand why is it important. So can you tell me in the chat box if you are aware of cybersecurity? When I say cybersecurity, in terms of your project, have you been involved in any of those projects? Or do you even recognize why it is so important for us? Maybe in the chat box, if you can just type in, it would be excellent to have that interaction or two-way conversations between us. Okay. Yes, I work on cyber projects. Yes, thank you. Okay, while you address that question, let's look at some of the stats here on cyber security. So every minute there are 39 seconds there is a cyber incident. So can you see how it is actually scaling and how fast things are actually moving when it comes to cyber incidents or the threats here, basically? And I think 51% of the global ransom activity was experienced in North America in the last quarter of 2024, and out of which 28% was accounted from Europe as well. And this domains especially that are being hit hard is the manufacturing, transportation, and healthcare sector, which is very, very important. And of course, there's a high surge of 67% of ransom groups emerging in just 2024, which really highlights the growing ecosystem of all organizations, whether it is small, big, or medium sized. And in fact, the smaller organizations, 60% of them have actually shut down because they're unable to bear the expenses and the impacts that these incidents bring. And of course, IoT, it's again a huge one. By end of this year, the estimated IoT devices which will be active is around 75 billion. Okay, yes, 75 billion connected IoT devices is what is estimated. And within that, 57% of them are vulnerable to medium or high risk. And that could be anything. It could be outdated firmware, weak passwords, or even following the security protocols. So if you just look at this, the scale is really, really huge. And let me come to a personal level as well. If you can type in the chat box again, how long, don't give me your password, but how long or the length of your password is. And is it just numbers or is it a combination of alphabets and numbers or whatever it is? It would be good to know. I'm just looking at the chat as well now. Okay, I see some of you have worked, some of you haven't worked on cyber projects. But you understand it is important. Yes, passphrase, Barbara, thank you. Yes, exactly. Now it is passphrase. And why it is and why it should be that is because if you look at this, anything that you have with just numbers or just one type of thing, it's instantly they can actually crack it down. Or if it is a combination also, as you can see, if it is anything eight characters, including all combinations within 3 hours, it can be actually cracked. So the minimum recommendation is to have anything around as a passphrase, which is 15 or anything above that, which probably gives. And again, this is also temporary transitioning because with AI, as you know, the speed and the scale is increased, which means even this will be challenged. But at the moment, this is where we are. And again, at a personal level, if you think that your passwords or your email IDs are all safe, you might have to check because most of the email IDs are compromised today. And if you would like to know if your email ID has been compromised or not, probably if you have heard, there is a website called haveibeenpawned.com. So if you go there, you will know. Let me put that in the chat. Looks like I can't type in the chat. Maybe in the end, I will try to do that. No worries. So that's again another place where you can go and check if your email ID is compromised, and it also gives you a history of how many times through which website your email ID was compromised. So which means it reminds you to keep changing your password as well. So in essence, what we are trying to highlight is this is just not an IT issue anymore. It is a business issue. It is a personal issue because technology is pervasive in whatever we do today. Unless and until we are one of those few people who are in the mountains away from their normal life, then we have to be concerned of it, we have to be aware of it, and we have to be prepared of how we are going to respond to this situation. And this is again ever changing. So this is just the start here. So moving on, coming from answering the question why from a BA perspective now, because that's what the focus is here for us during this conversation. So as BAs, again, and a question, how many of you are BAs or use BA skills? If you can just type in the chat, that would be good so that we will know our audience better. So as value co-creators, what we do is we work with all the people or all the teams within the value chain, and then we interact with them and we try to create something that brings value either to our end customers or to our internal employees or whoever it is. So basically, as BAs, we are those stewards, or we are the point where all the spokes of the wheel connect so that we facilitate and we deliver something of value. So again, what is that precious thing that we are delivering? And when we deliver, when the entire organization or all the teams involved to bring this change, think for a moment, why do we leave the security part of it to just one team or a few people to look into it? And that too, they are involved late in the project or after the value is co-created, then they are actually involved. How would they actually even come and secure something where everything is actually completed? Because security is not a peripheral thing. It is very much goes much deeper, wider, broader. Basically, it has to be the fabric of everything that we do, especially today, because security happens in layers. Talking about value again, imagine if you have anything, any object which costs £1, the way you handle it, the attention that you give would be different to another object that is £1,000 or a £10,000 or a £10 million. So the higher the value, the more riskier it is, and the more attention it needs, and the more security it needs. So the first point for us to understand as business analysts or the value co-creators is to recognize what is the crown jewels that we are holding within our organization. And then understand what are those risks. Identify every risk that can happen at every stage. And only then we can take a conscious decision to say, okay, this is of whatever the value, and this is how much I want to secure or how stronger the security should be. So those responses and those requirements, everything will come. But the very first step is to identify what is the crown jewels that we are holding within our organization. And why is this important? Because as BAs, what we do currently is we understand what is the value that we need to bring in, or the change that we are creating or co-creating, and we analyze around this change, and we prepare certain reports, certain information, so that the organization, based on our analysis, can take a conscious decision of whether they want to implement the change or not, or if they want to implement the change, what is the best solution options or the approaches that they can take. So which means based on our analysis, somebody else is taking a decision, and that decision impacts a lot more stakeholder groups or our end users. So which means somebody is trusting our analysis to be accurate, to be complete, to be correct, and then they're going to make the decision. And now, if we are not including the security aspect of it, and we just say, okay, we create this, but we don't highlight what is the value it has and why it should be secured, and what happens if it is not secured, which means our analysis itself is incomplete. So as a BA, we won't be delivering what we are expected to deliver. Maybe earlier it was okay, but today, given the landscape has changed, the playground of our businesses has changed, and it is constantly evolving. It is very, very imperative, and we cannot ignore the security part to be outside of our analysis. So if that makes sense, again, just type in the chat box to say if that makes sense, or if you have any questions, as Heather mentioned, please type into the Q&A box. So, which brings to a very important point, that there is an undocumented trust between the business analyst and their client to deliver a complete analysis to enable informed decision making. Making business analysis is a responsibility. It is just not a set of activities that we do, it is a responsibility that we deliver. And that is the big why that we need to understand as BAs, that why security should be within and not outside of my analysis. So that is the 5 why it is. And now let's look at what is the root cause. Again, as BAs, it is all about understanding what is the root cause, because the moment we start on a project, we go to the details of, okay, what is the root cause? Is the solution actually addressing the root cause, or are we just putting another patch to the symptom? So to identify what is the real cause, let's go back to 2-3 decades back, where, as you can see on this slide, it is a technology progression slide. So the very first computer, or maybe going back 20-30 decades, I don't know if you guys have actually used this standalone system, but I definitely have started my career in the late 90s, and I was working on this standalone machine. So I started my career as an analyst systems developer, which means my job was to code. But as I was still a consultant working in an as a contractor consultant. So basically, we used to go to banks' branches, and we used to work with their EDP departments, which was electronic data processing departments, where we would automate their repetitive processes, or help them generate reports. So basically, we would go to the branches of the banks and understand their operations, and we would write the code, we would understand what those requirements are, design the database, normalize, actually look into those manual forms and try to pick up the data there, do the normalization, design the database. So basically everything, write the code, the data itself, and even end of the day, the bank employees would come and complete their transactions. So pretty much everything was done on one machine. So other than the security of the physical equipment, the only challenge we had was a virus which would come through a floppy disk, because the information transferring was happening through a floppy disk, an external disk, where we would slip into a disk, to the computer, we copy the data, and then we go and paste the data on another computer and do the same thing. So while we do that, there was a risk, only one risk of some virus, which means there would be another program where we would run by the antivirus disk and it would clean up. So we had a simple problem, we had a simple solution. We had one problem, we had one solution. So, but later on, we started connecting the terminals, the computers as local area network or the wider area network, and it started growing. And with the advent of the internet, it then everything expanded. And today it's distributed technology where we can initiate a transaction on one gadget and in one part of the world, uh, do some another bit of it in another part of the world, or complete the transaction on completely another touch point, and in another part of the world. So which means one piece of information or the data will be constantly moving through the cloud wherever we with the touch points we are operating, and it also goes through many different suppliers, firewalls, gateways, everything. So there's a constant movement of this data, and imagine what level of security that is required at every stage. And here we are talking about not only the data, the technology around it, the encryption requirements around it, the people requirements around it, the compliance governance requirements around it. Can you see all of these layers? So now, because we have expanded so much, we have to also catch up. And with AI, again, that is going to completely change the speed and the scale of how we are operating. That means the expansion is happening even more at a very faster rate, which means as technology is expanding, our systems are getting more vulnerable. When the ecosystem is getting more vulnerable, that means we need to bring in more security controls. And that is exactly the root cause. Many organizations by default, we are doing everything. We have, a framework which is implemented. We follow the guidelines. We are compliant. They tick all the boxes. And today, I think probably it would be much easier to find organization who has, or a smaller list of those organizations who are yet to have or experience a cyber attack. But most other organizations have. How much ever the precautions they have taken, there are still being those victims for cyber attacks. And why is that? And this is exactly the reason, because we have expanded so much. That means we will have to constantly evolve and adapt accordingly with the same speed as well. So that is, again, I mean, of course, it's a long topic, but within the 30 minutes, I'm trying to just touch the surface and give you a bit of a background understanding what and why and how we can address this. So next, where do we address? How do we find a solution for this? And as I mentioned, security should be the fabric of everything that we do. It is not a peripheral solution, but at every stage, which means at an application level, we will have even the logging in feature is also security. It is just not to identify what kind of a user who is logging in, but it is a security feature. What level of security do we need? Do we need two-factor, or do we just need a password, and what kind of password? So it all depends, going back to the original thing, value. What is that we are holding? What is the value of our crown jewels? And based on that is all these security solutions. So it could be at the app, or it should be at the application level as well. And then once we are interacting with the application, which means the data is moving all around other systems or other third parties who are providing the solution. Now everything is on cloud, and it goes to different computers, different systems, individually, organization-wide level, and the cloud level as well. So which means at every stage, are those infrastructure secured? Are the gateways secured? Firewall secured? Is it encrypted if the data were to be compromised, or what level of compromise, or what level of security do we need to do. So again, at that level, we need to bring in the security. And yes, the frameworks, there are standards which help us to put a process in place to make sure that all of these check boxes are checked, and the right process with for the security categorization is included, and those frameworks and those standards are also part of the security solutions. And of course, the legal and regulatory. Now, every single day, more and more, the data categorization is becoming more private, which means organizations will have a challenge to kind of identify what data is actually not private, what data is private. And now, again, with technology, we are recording all of our calls. We are trying to, analyze. We are using AI to kind of analyze the meetings, give us the information. So, which means again, the information is out there. So, what level of privacy and sensitivity of the data we are actually looking at, and even the organizations and the governments are actually now getting into more detailed, more in depth, which means again that also becomes another layer of security. And for all of these, the top layer is just to first and foremost identify, analyze our information to say what is the value that we are holding and what is the risk if we had to compromise this data, and what would the impact that be. So all of this at all of these levels is security, and only when we address all of these levels, we will be able to define, or we will be able to secure something which is the protection of the systems that we have, all the processes around it, the networks, the data, and the people as well. Because people is just not the person who is operating. Again, there's a whole variety of personas, as we call, would be good actors, bad actors, and in between those good and bad actors as well, there's a lot more variances in those personas. So in the book, there is a chapter dedicated for that as well, where you will get a flavor of understanding how deeper even these will get. So that is about understanding where we need to address this and when we are supposed to address this. Definitely not an afterthought, or not after the value is co-created. We are going to look at it, but we will design the solution. We are going to shift left. Shift left. How far are we going to shift left? Is to the beginning of the project. The moment we know we are starting some initiative, which means if there is some data involved, which is inevitable in today's world, which means from that is the point we actually start thinking about it. We involve people from the initial strategy analysis, or initial analysis, discovery phase, whatever we call it, or even during the iteration initiation. Whenever we are starting, that is the point security should be part of it, and not afterwards. And it goes through the designing stage, it goes through the development phase, testing, implementation throughout. And again, we also have a dedicated chapter where, as a BA, what are those things that we can do in every stage of the project? What are those artifacts that as a BA we are currently anyway delivering, but what is the extension? So there is a cybersecurity extension at every phase of this to help the business analyst or those who are using the BA skills to actually extend their analysis and include cybersecurity in all of these stages across the project lifecycle. Okay, and then finally, who? Who is responsible for security? Security is everyone's responsibility. That is it. It is just not one person's, everybody, and we will see why it is important as well. I mean, of course, we have gone through the big why, but we will also look at what is that key, which is a security mindset that all of us should have within the organization as well. But since our focus is more on the business analysis, let's see how, as BAs, we can support the cybersecurity initiative within our organization as well. So when we say BAs, currently we will still need our core BA skills. We cannot get away with that because as BAs, we will still need our analysis skills, our interpersonal skills, our communication skills, our all the BA activities that we are going to prepare, all of the documentation that we are going to support each and every stage, whatever we are doing, all of that will be required. But because we are extending our analysis holistically to include security, we need to understand what is that shift or what is that additional information or knowledge that I need to understand relating to cybersecurity so that I can include it holistically. And to do that, there is a required shift. One thing we have to be mindful here is business analyst is on one end of the spectrum, and cybersecurity analyst or analysis is at the other end of the spectrum. So when it comes to cybersecurity and analysis, it is completely a technical analysis, looking into the technical solutions, looking into all the technical aspects, completely pure technical in nature. However, when it comes to business analysis, whatever we are currently doing, which is more of business related and supporting the co-creation of the value, we are still trying to secure that, which means we have another layer of knowledge, but we will still remain as a business analyst with cybersecurity knowledge so that holistically we can deliver the analysis. But we are not going to become the cybersecurity analyst. But this is the first step. If you wish to pursue your career towards that, then yes, this would be the first step where you understand what are those, and then you can continue if you would like to become more of a cybersecurity analyst, which is much more technical in nature. So to do that, the required shift, what is that knowledge or the cybersecurity knowledge that we need? So as you can see in this diagram, the core BA knowledge is still mandatory. That is the core of who we are and what we bring to the table here. That will still remain the same. But the additional knowledge is this blue area, that is the security knowledge areas. So what are those security knowledge areas? It could be understanding the security vocabulary. What are those different terminologies mean so that I can talk to the cybersecurity teams accordingly when I understand what all those terminologies are. Extending our risk analysis to cybersecurity. Again, when we say cybersecurity, which is aligning to our business objectives. Completely technical analysis is different. Threat analysis is again completely with technical, but again, like as BAs today, we work with the data teams, we work with technical teams because we understand the technology to a certain extent. So similarly, when we understand the technology of the security to a certain extent, we will be able to support those teams as well. So these are all the knowledge areas that we will be understanding or we are required to understand. And finally, the outer layer, these are all the subject matter experts. Because with this knowledge, we will not be the subject matter experts because each and every aspect of it is huge and wide in its own, and like any other business. So if you're working in an insurance domain or a health sector domain or logistics domain, anything, we will, as a BAs, we will have enough knowledge to work and deliver this project with the team. But there will be SMEs, there will be subject matter experts who will have in-depth knowledge about their domains. So similarly, when it comes to cybersecurity knowledge areas, these are all the domain experts who will be there, which means when I'm working on a project, I recognize, okay, these are the security considerations I need to make because now I understand with this knowledge, then I go and tap into the SME's knowledge and I ask them further questions. I get more information that I need. And like how we go to the business SMEs, similarly, we go to the cybersecurity SMEs here. So this is the knowledge area. This is the shift that we need, and this is the knowledge the book is currently providing the readers as well. So finally, there is a framework that the book provides. So this framework really holds the hand of the business analyst or the reader to walk them through from no knowledge of cybersecurity to in making sure that we have considered security holistically at every stage of the project, or within every deliverable or every activity that we as a BA undertake, so that we can deliver a complete analysis at every stage. Or if we are not delivering a complete analysis, or if we are just doing some bit of process analysis or some bit of risk analysis, even then this framework will actually help. So as you can see here, the foundation for this framework is business analysis and security mindset. We are just going to look at security mindset now in a minute, but that is the foundation. Because without the security mindset, we will still be thinking that we are doing all the things that we need to secure, but in essence, we may not be actually securing it. So having that mindset is very, very important. And again, as we saw, security is not a peripheral solution. It is in the fabric of everything that we do. It should be within the DNA of every activity, irrespective of whoever is working on the project. So that is the security mindset. So once we have that, you can see here, risk analysis and business analysis are the two pillars here. So why are these two pillars? Is yes, as a BA, at every stage as we go through, we will have to incorporate cyber security aspects, and that is why it's a pillar there. Risk analysis is again another pillar, because unless and until we know the value and we have identified the risks, only then we can say, okay, if we haven't identified the risk, then there won't be any solution. And that's exactly why today, when you actually analyze an incident, cyber incident, you can see either the risk has been overlooked or mismanaged, because we haven't actually seen the depth of that risk. So risk analysis is huge to identify what is going wrong and what will be the impact. Only then we can either choose to do nothing or to address it to whatever the levels, depending on the value that we hold, the crown jewels that we have. So yes, so that is why it's a pillar here. And then again, after that, it's the data security, depending again on the context of the project, the people and the personas. Who are those people? What level of access they need? What level of security we need? What are the different personas? Like, as I said, good and bad actor are only touching the surface. There are so many different personas in between. They could be a very good actor or a good actor who is using the system, but accidentally they could do something wrong. So that will become another persona, or somebody who knows the stuff, but they choose not to do the things the way it is expected to. That would be another set of persona. It doesn't mean that we'll have to use everything, but we will have to choose the one that our organization needs or our project needs. So based on that, again, that is another level. Uh, with our skills for process engagement or process modeling, we can help organizations with managing their incidents. Because one thing we have to be very mindful, there is nothing called 100% security anywhere, not in life, not in our projects, nowhere. So which means the more we are prepared, the better we can respond. So if we are conscious about, okay, this can go wrong, then which means we will be better prepared, which is our incident management. And why do we need that? Because we want to make sure that there is a business continuity, because there's a dependency on the systems, whether it is the confidential data or the integrity of the data, that nobody tampers it, or it is the availability of the data, which means whenever I need the information, I should get the information. So to maintain the business continuity, again, we can support. Business case, which is again one of the skill that as BAs we bring to the table. Now we can include that with cybersecurity as well, and we can support the teams. Security policy is again the first, understanding what is the crown jewels, why is it, and once we know, then we can help identifying what are those assets, information assets, and what level of security, why it is, because we are bringing our analytical skills by and helping the security team to build that. And as you can see on the top is ethics again, which is again the overarching. No matter what things we do underneath here, it should have the ethical lens there, because again it all depends on the decision making. So this is the ethical lens that helps the organization make those decisions. Is the trust, our customer trust is important to us. That means how are we going to look after their data, or what kind of level of security that is required when we are sharing with our suppliers, how ethically are we going to make sure that it is being maintained that way. So these are all the ethical compass or the ethical lens will appear on that. So this is the framework which really helps, and the book, it actually starts from the business analysis mindset and the security mindset, and then it builds chapter by chapter. We can build finally with the ethics. So that, yes, security mindset, this is what I wanted to conclude with. So as we can see here, we have this bike, which is how all of us actually park. We just have this loop lock here, and we think it is secured. And that is how, like even in our organizations, we say, yeah, I have this process, I have this access control, I have this authentication, I have this, I have that. But somewhere, is it really, really secured? Is the question that we need to ask. Because although we are doing the things right, it might not actually be securing. So once we understand, is it really important? It is okay if we want to take a risk, if the bike is going away, or, then that's okay. As long as we consciously make the decision, then we are okay with this. We are taking this risk, and we are just okay with this simple lock. But if this is a very precious bike where we cannot take a risk, then what would be our security approach? So that is the security mindset to really, really check. It's like, not just doing things right, but doing the right things. That is the security mindset. So yeah, security mindset is everything. First and foremost, realize the value, identify the potential dangers, because if you don't identify, we don't fix it. And then design the protection solutions, the suitable ones for that. And that brings to the end of this presentation. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Back to you, Heather, because I can't see the Q&A box.
No worries at all. So yes, as I said, please do add any questions that you have to the Q&A box, and we can get those answered. But thank you for everyone for joining today. But whilst we wait for those questions to come in, I thought I'd start us off, if that's okay. If a business analyst was looking to champion cybersecurity, who are the kind of key stakeholders within an organization should they look to engage with to make cybersecurity a priority?
That's a very good question and a very good starting point as well. So as BAs, Heather, when we start working on a project, the first thing we look at is the organizational chart to understand what are the different categorization, and what is the project, where does it fit, and who or all it is impacting. So which means going back to our stakeholder engagement chart, or even recognizing who are those stakeholders. So cybersecurity, the security team, IT infrastructure team, who basically are contributing to the security aspect of this, will all become the stakeholders. So once we start looking from the organization chart, start identifying those, and then, like it's like any other contacting any other stakeholders or engaging with any other stakeholders. We start including the security or the cyber, because every organization has a different setup. So in some smaller organizations, maybe the IT team, there could be a security person who would be in charge of that. In a bigger organizations, there would be dedicated security teams. And again, when I say they are dedicated, again, they would have different teams looking into different areas of security as well. So all like typically a BA answer, depending on the context, uh, check the organization chart and see who are all under this particular stream and interact with them. And as I always say, it's better like there's no stupid question and there's no assumption in the BA world. Even though I might think this is what it is, I still ask the question. So which means like that, make sure that if they have an impact, it's always better to ask that question whether this would impact them or not. And what I have found that is every time when I do, I only build the rapport with them, which means next time when I go, they understand, okay, that they are giving us the attention, they want us to be involved, and that is how the relationship also builds as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't think there's any more questions that come through, so I am going to use this opportunity to ask a second one, if that's okay. And I think this is possibly going to be really useful. I know I'm very interested to hear about this, but what would you say are the like essential starting skills for individuals looking to kind of improve their understanding and start to kind of understand where they can build that capability in, and to incorporating cybersecurity principles into their role? Where should they start with this?
I think the very first step is understanding the big why. And the moment we understand why, again, going back to the foundation, is the security mindset. I am finding that, and I also hear people every time after a session or after my training programs, they actually come and tell me that, you know, the security mindset has actually not only helped them in their work, but even in their personal lives as well. It really gives them the the thinking, you know, it's like another switch that is on, or you know, another gear mentally that you haven't actually looked into that. And one thing, or one um, or what one person, you know, which really has stayed with me is they said, I actually went and bought a life insurance after I started understanding the importance of security. So for me, you know, it wasn't just at the organization level or, you know, at that level or, you know, at the work career level, but they really implemented that into their personal level as well. So which means having that security mindset is the key, is the starting point. The moment you have that, and as a BA, it's very natural for us to ask those questions. It's just that we haven't seen that, you know, like when you widen the blinkers, you know, you start looking at things from a different perspective. You see a different and a wider image, which means you will be checking those, you'll be asking those questions, you'll be also even recognizing sometimes the way we are doing things might not be the efficient way as well. And these are all the things that, as a BA, even with the current skills, without knowing much, just with that one security mindset, can start that. And once again, there's information, there's book here, and there's a lot of articles on on my website, particularly which is cybersecurity for business analysts, which is focused for the BA work. And of course, there are a lot of security magazines where people are interested. They can really go into it, but these are all would be the starting point. But if today, what I highly, highly recommend for every BA is, because we are moving towards there, that everything that we are doing is technology. And if we want to deliver a complete analysis, we need to understand this, and which again brings back to the point of, you know, all the aspects in the book. If we are aware of that, then from that BA mindset, we can move to become that BA, from the security mindset, we can become to the BA who will deliver holistically the cybersecurity aspects of it as well in their analysis.
Very interesting. Thank you. We do have another question actually. So Juliet's asked, so most BAs have general skills. Should they be cyber experts to deliver technical cyber projects?
Yes, to deliver cyber projects specifically, yes, they have to be. Again, when we say cyber, what aspect of cyber are we looking at? Are we looking at the network security? Are we looking at the application security? Are we looking at the data security? When I say data, it's the data sources. So again, even within the technology, there are niche areas there. So again, it all depends what they are looking at. And today, the playground is so huge that you can just focus on one thing and you can get into that as your career progression as well. But the starting point would be to understand holistically from a BA, if we are a BA currently, understand what are those impacts and then find those areas where you really have a passion or you have an alignment towards.
Perfect. And we have a question from AO. So they've asked, is there a certificate/professional path a BA should explore to be equipped to work confidently on cyber projects?
Yes, currently there, when it comes from a BA background, for BA specifically, there is IIBA cybersecurity certification, cybersecurity analysis certification. That is the only one related to BA specifically, but there are other certifications as well where as a BA we can, it is a bit longer path where you get, because most of the other security or the cybersecurity trainings focus more on the technical aspects. But coming from a BA background, there are not many. So that is one. And because of this gap, currently I have been delivering workshops, which is 1-day workshops or 2 half-a-day workshops, where for a BA, as we saw in the framework, we go through every stage completely from a BA background with the BA knowledge, how we can incorporate cybersecurity within our, which is a 1-day workshop as well. So these are some of the avenues specifically for BA. But if it is generally, if you want to learn about that, there are many cyber security trainings, some of them free, some of them paid, but pretty much they focus on the technical solution aspects. But coming from a business background or from a business perspective, these are the few that we have.
Perfect. So I think we have potentially a third question. Yes, third questions that's come through. Would the IIBA certification be sufficient for a BA be termed cyber knowledgeable, not a cyber security analyst per se, but a cyber BA, so kind of that middle ground?
That's actually a very good question. And I think pretty much when it comes to IIBA certification, it is more leaning towards the technology side rather than the BA side. And that is one of, you could see it in both ways, advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage part is, yes, you will be more in line towards aligning towards the cybersecurity specialist because it talks about a lot of all the concepts, all the technical concepts more as part of that, because the focus with the BA part is very less. And the disadvantage there, which I hear because I deliver that training as well, I hear from many BAs is they said, when I went to do that certification, I found it very difficult because I don't understand the technical aspects of that, and it is all technical concepts. So that is the double side, the advantage and the disadvantage. But to answer your question, yes, it is more towards the technical aspect. And yes, I think to be termed cyber knowledgeable, yes, you will get that from IIBA certification. You're welcome.
Perfect. Ideal. Thank you so much. And we've just got one, I think we've got time for one final question that's just come through. They have asked, so we have a technical design authority team, and they're wondering when they get the cyber team involved, well, when should they get cyber team involved, sorry, and how early should they get a cyber team involved in solution options and design?
As I mentioned, from the day one, when you start the project, include the cyber team, because cyber has to be part of the fabric. It cannot be an afterthought. I think we have learned it within the project development as well, that a bug to be fixed at the later stage of the project is always expensive. Exactly on the same lines, to go and retrofit security is just impossible, because we have gone, like, if the design has gone through and if we want to retrofit security into the design, it is impossible, at least in that iteration or in that project. So which means always involve them from the beginning. There is a common understanding within organizations. They say, okay, if we start involving this security or the cyber team, they will delay the things, because there are certain things that you have to do. But today, I think the kind of technology that we are dependent on, we just cannot say that they are going to create the delay, because retrofitting is just not possible. So the sooner you start involving them, the better it is.
Perfect. And I think that's a lovely way to end this webinar. So again, thank you all so much for your time today. It's been wonderful hosting today. As mentioned, there is a code in the chat for a 20% off the book. And we also have a webinar series, so do keep an eye on the upcoming ones. And we also have a playlist for previous ones as well. And this has been recorded and will be uploaded onto YouTube if there's anything you've missed, because I noticed a few people have come in towards the end, or if there's anything you want to just catch up on again. So thank you, and again, a big thank you to Bindu as well for a fantastic webinar. It's been an honour, so a big thank you again, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you all for joining, and thank you for your interaction, and thank you, Heather, for another lovely conversation with you and hosting this webinar, and thanks for the opportunity. And yes, please do connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to respond, and we can keep the conversation going there. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.